You've heard the phrase, "It's better to be feared than loved." Everyone quotes that line like it's gospel. Like Machiavelli himself whispered it into the ears of kings and tyrants. But that's only half the truth. The part people repeat when they want to justify cruelty, or pretend they're in control. They ignore the rest, the real lesson. Not because it's hidden, but because it's dangerous. Fear will make them obey, but it will never make them loyal. And that's the fatal flaw, the invisible crack in every empire that thinks the sword alone can hold the throne. The rulers who lasted? The ones whose empires outlived their bodies? They didn't rule by threat. They ruled by need. They made themselves so essential, so woven into the fabric of people's lives, that to leave them felt like cutting out your own heart. They didn't force loyalty. They engineered it. So the next time someone tells you it's better to be feared than loved, remember this. The feared are overthrown. The loved are forgotten. But the needed? They are obeyed, worshipped, defended, even in absence. Because if you don't understand this, if you try to lead, rule, or influence using only fear or affection, your power will vanish the moment you look away. People obey fear only as long as you're watching. They love you only until someone more lovable comes along. But make them dependent? Make them need you to survive, to succeed, to matter, and they'll never walk away. This is the Machiavellian law of invisible chains. If you fail to bind people with need, you will spend your life chasing their loyalty. And the moment they find a better offer, you're done. Fear creates order, but it doesn't build allegiance. It gets you silence in the room, but rebellion in the shadows. It forces obedience while the blade is visible, but it invites betrayal the second you blink. That's why the powerful who rely on fear are always paranoid. Because deep down, they know it's temporary. They know fear fades. They know someone bolder is always waiting, just outside the gates, whispering promises of revolution. Machiavelli saw this. Not just in kings and princes, but in the lives of advisors, generals, and servants. The ones who stayed loyal weren't the ones who were most afraid. They were the ones who had something to lose. Real loyalty is not about reverence. It's about risk. Ask yourself this: why would someone die for a leader? Why would they silence critics, fight your battles, or protect your name even when you're not in the room? Not because they love you. Not because they fear you. Because without you, they lose everything. That's the difference. Fear demands obedience. Need ensures protection. And love? Love is fragile. It's soft. It's conditional. It breaks when tested. But need, true, strategic dependency, is unshakable. Throughout history, the most enduring rulers were magnets, not tyrants. They built networks of needs so subtle their followers couldn't see the chains. They gave power, but only through themselves. They offered elevation, but only if you stayed close. And so, the followers clung, not out of reverence, but survival. Loyalty isn't given. It's not bought. It's built. Slowly. Quietly. Systematically. The rulers who lasted weren't the loudest or the most terrifying. They were the most indispensable. Machiavelli didn't believe in demanding allegiance. He believed in engineering it. And here's how it starts, not with a speech or a grand act of generosity, but with a need only you can fulfill. One favor. One opportunity. One moment when you offer what no one else can. That's the first link in the chain. It feels like a gift. It feels like luck. But it's not. It's the start of a design. Because once you give someone what they thought they couldn't have, status, protection, belonging, they don't just thank you. They adjust to you. They recalculate their place in the world with you at the center. Do this once, and they're grateful. Do this consistently, and they're bound. This is how kings created loyalty without fear. They made their court the only place that mattered. They turned privilege into addiction. You want unbreakable power? Stop trying to be loved. Stop threatening with fear. Start controlling value. When people know that only you can open the right doors, make the right introductions, or grant the right protections, they'll orbit you like satellites. And they won't even call it loyalty. They'll call it respect. They'll say you earned it. But what they won't admit, what they may never even realize, is that their survival now depends on you. This is the art of the soft trap. It doesn't feel like a cage. It feels like privilege. But slowly, it becomes their world. Every favor you give becomes a thread. Every secret you share becomes a wall between them and others. Every opportunity you provide becomes a rung in the ladder they could never climb without you. And now, they'll defend you. Not because you asked, but because defending you defends their position, their pride, their access to the life they now believe they deserve. This is why cult leaders don't always need threats. Why CEOs don't need to yell. Why influencers can trigger wars in their comments without ever lifting a finger. They've created identity-based loyalty. Not fear. Not love. And when you understand that, you stop trying to control people. You start creating the conditions where they control themselves. Once you've built need, once the invisible chains are in place, you face a new challenge. Who can you actually trust? Because not every follower stays loyal under pressure. Some smile while the sun shines, but vanish at the first storm. Machiavelli knew this better than anyone. He didn't just build loyalty, he tested it. And so must you. Do not assume that the bonds you've created are strong until they are tested. Create moments of uncertainty. Withhold your support unexpectedly. Shift alliances. Manufacture minor crises. Because pressure doesn't create weakness, it reveals it. The weak will grumble. They'll hedge their bets, look for other options. But the strong? They'll tighten their grip. They'll defend you even if it costs them. These are the ones you elevate. Because they've proven something more valuable than affection or obedience. They've shown alignment. And when someone proves themselves, reward them. But don't reward with comfort. Reward with proximity. Bring them closer. Make them feel chosen. Let the world see it. Because when loyalty is seen, it multiplies. This is why the smartest rulers don't hide their alliances. They display them. A public compliment. A seat at the right table. A symbolic gesture in front of others. It seems small. But psychologically it's massive. Public praise is a binding chain. Now the loyalist doesn't just feel special. They feel seen. And once someone's reputation is tied to you, once the world knows they rose because of you, betrayal becomes dangerous for them. It's not about your power anymore. It's about their image. This is the same reason ancient empires gave out medals. Why cults have ceremonies. Why influencers tag their favorite followers. It's not just celebration, it's insurance. The more someone owes their rise to you in public, the less likely they are to turn on you in private. Now let's go deeper. Not all loyalty is built in the open. The most dangerous, the most powerful kind is ritualized. Private check-ins. Inside jokes. Exclusive group chats. Weekly calls. These don't feel like power. They feel like routine. But each one is a loop in the invisible rope. Every repetition reinforces the bond. Every secret shared tightens the circle. And eventually, loyalty isn't something they choose, it's something they live inside. They don't even recognize the trap. Because the trap looks like a community. Like family. Like a place they earned. This is the true Machiavellian game. Don't build cages. Build comfort. Build identity. Build rituals that make walking away feel like self-destruction. Because once you've done that, you've crossed the threshold. You've created not followers, but defenders. Not supporters, but protectors. People who would rather burn than lose your light. And you didn't need fear. You didn't need affection. You needed only one thing. To become irreplaceable. Loyalty doesn't just exist inside people. If you do it right, it lives outside them. Around them. Between them. It becomes a culture. And cultures, unlike individuals, are self-sustaining. This is where Machiavelli's genius becomes dangerous. Because he didn't just build individual loyalty, he built tribes. Inner circles with invisible gates. Rituals. Status. Meaning. And that's how you turn simple followers into believers. Start with exclusivity. The most loyal aren't the ones you let in easily. They're the ones who had to fight to stay. The ones who sacrificed to join. Who paid a price. Who proved themselves over time. Because when loyalty is earned, it becomes identity. Give them a role no one else can fill. Let them into the room others can't enter. Teach them something only insiders know. Now, they're not just loyal to you, they're loyal to the meaning of being chosen. Once someone has worn the badge, heard the secrets, sat at the table, they'll protect that position. Because to lose you is not just to lose a leader. It's to lose status, belonging, a sense of specialness they can't find anywhere else. And when that belonging is built through shared struggle, it becomes even more powerful. Cults do this. Secret societies do this. Elite military units do this. They create pain, real or artificial, then walk you through it. Together. Because shared hardship doesn't weaken people. It binds them. It turns a collection of individuals into a we. That's why trials exist. That's why rituals of suffering are sacred. Because pain, passed together, creates a memory no outsider can touch. And once your people have bled with you, sacrificed for you, survived something beside you, your leadership stops being transactional. It becomes tribal. But they don't just serve you. They protect the story, the myth of what this circle means. This is where loyalty becomes self-policing. You no longer have to hunt for traitors. Because the tribe will smell them before you do. The culture you've built, the rules, the rituals, the roles, becomes alive. And your loyalists? They become its guardians. They check newcomers. They challenge the disloyal. They enforce the values you've embedded, because those values now define them. That's the shift. You've stopped being a leader who commands. You've become a legend they protect. Because without you, the identity falls apart. Without you, they're just individuals again. No belonging. No power. No story. And that is worse than fear. That's emptiness. Once your inner circle is built, once they've suffered with you, risen through you, and built their identity around your presence, the next challenge is subtle but deadly. How do you grow this power without corrupting it? How do you expand without diluting the very loyalty that made you strong? Machiavelli had an answer. Don't chase numbers. Guard the gates. Because not everyone is worthy. And letting in too many, too fast, kills the magic. The paradox of power is this. The harder it is to earn, the more people want it. So make loyalty expensive. Let the path to your inner circle feel real, challenging, uncomfortable. Set trials. Create symbols. Ask for public demonstrations of commitment. And when someone earns their place, make sure they never forget what it cost. Because the more they paid to join you, the harder it is to leave. The price becomes the anchor. And the loss of status? The quiet terror that keeps them in line. That's why every true power circle has symbols, colors, handshakes, codes, phrases, meeting spots. They might look trivial to outsiders. But to insiders, they're sacred. They signal, I belong. I matter. I paid the price. And once that identity sets in, betrayal isn't just treason, it's self-destruction. But loyalty isn't only about symbols. It's also about scarcity. Never give everything freely. Don't always say yes. Don't always be available. Make your approval rare. Make your attention feel earned. Because scarcity breeds obsession. That's the psychology behind casinos, addictive apps, cults, even elite clubs. The more unpredictable the reward, the more people chase it. And when people aren't sure if they'll win your favor, they work harder to secure it. This is how you make them compete for you. Not with fear. Not with punishment. With hope. Hope that you'll choose them. That you'll grant them access. That your favor means they matter. And now, you don't even need to rule. They'll rule themselves. They'll defend the hierarchy you built, police the culture you designed, and fight to stay in your orbit. And here's where Machiavelli delivers the final twist. The truest loyalty? It survives when you're no longer there. So what happens when you step away? When you disappear? What happens to the power you built? If all you created was charisma and fear, your empire dies with you. But if you built structure? If you created rituals, standards, and symbols that outlive your presence, then your power continues like a religion. This is the final Machiavellian victory. When people no longer serve you, they serve the system you left behind. The legacy, the myth, the identity they've built around loyalty itself. And that kind of loyalty doesn't vanish. It becomes generational. Power that survives you. One day, every king leaves the throne. Every founder steps away. Every ruler, no matter how dominant, will face a single moment of truth. What remains when you're gone? Fear dies with your presence. Love fades with distance. But loyalty, if forged the right way, becomes self-sustaining. This was Machiavelli's true obsession. Not just how to win power, but how to design a world where power doesn't need to be enforced. Where your absence doesn't mean collapse. It means worship. That's why you don't just build influence. You build institutions. Codify what loyalty means. Turn values into rituals. Turn rituals into habits. Embed the culture you built into symbols, language, roles, so deeply that even strangers who enter it feel its weight before they understand its rules. Reward loyalty, not just in private, but in public. Let everyone know what allegiance looks like, so they can imitate it, chase it, fight to be part of it. Name successors. Build a chain of command. Not out of bureaucracy, but out of survival. Because if your system depends only on you, it will die with you. But if it runs through you and then beyond you, now you're not a ruler. You're a myth. And myths? They don't retire. They don't fade. They echo. Look at every religion. Every dynasty. Every secret society. They all did the same thing. They turned loyalty into identity. When someone no longer sees obedience as a duty, but as a reflection of who they are, you've won. You fused their self-worth with their allegiance to you. Now, leaving isn't just betrayal of you. It's betrayal of themselves. This is how the greatest legacies survive. Not by fear. Not by love. But by embedding loyalty into the bones of those who followed them. So ask yourself, are you trying to control people? Or are you building something they'd rather die than leave? Are you demanding loyalty? Or are you designing a world where loyalty is the only path to meaning? Because that's the difference between power that intimidates and power that outlives you. You started this journey trying to make them obey. But Machiavelli would whisper, don't make them obey. Make them believe. Make them need. Make them never want to leave. Not because they have to. Because they can't imagine a life without you. That is the final Machiavellian victory. Not to command from the throne, but to become the throne itself. And when you've done it right, even in your absence, your name will still be spoken in rooms you never built. Your rules still followed in circles you never saw. Your shadow still felt by people who never knew your face. Because power fades. But a world designed in your image, that lasts forever. Loyalty isn't always about keeping people in. Sometimes it's about keeping others out. Machiavelli understood something the weak never grasp. Control isn't just what you build. It's what you prevent others from building. Because as you rise, there will be others. Challengers, rivals, outsiders. People who want to pull your loyalists away. You don't stop them by yelling louder. You stop them by corrupting the battlefield itself. This is the next evolution of control. Weaponized loyalty. You take what they value most, their loyalty to you, and you use it to destroy your enemies before they even act. First, you bind your inner circle not just to your power, but to your ideology. You give your vision language, symbols, rituals. You create a way of thinking. Now, anyone who questions you isn't just disagreeing. They're violating the code. And your loyalists? They'll correct them, silence them, attack them, not because you ordered it, but because they feel morally obligated. This is how the strongest cults survive without ever calling themselves cults. They create self-reinforcing morality. Leave the leader, and you're not just lost, you're wrong. That's step 1. Step 2. Turn rivals into cautionary tales. Don't just ignore those who betrayed you. Use them. Publicly. Visibly. Their downfall becomes your warning. Remind your followers. This is what happens when loyalty is broken. Let their name rot. Let their absence be discussed. And make sure everyone understands. Once you leave, you don't come back. Because the fear of exile, of being cast out from the inner circle, from privilege, from identity, that fear is stronger than any punishment. Now you've built two walls. An emotional one to hold people in, and a social one to keep outsiders afraid to cross you. But there's more. If you want to be truly untouchable, learn this Machiavellian tactic. Turn loyalty into a transaction they don't even realize they're paying for. Every time they get your approval, they feel seen. Every time they win a privilege, they feel special. Every time you withhold, they feel desperate. You are training them like royalty trains courtiers. Through emotional volatility wrapped in calculated generosity. You're not being erratic. You're conditioning addiction. Today you reward. Tomorrow you vanish. Then you return with silence. Or with a gift. And they scramble to interpret your signals, to decode your moods. They become obsessed with reading you. Like gamblers reading a deck. Like devotees reading scripture. And in that obsession, you become everything. A god. A storm. A mirror to their worth. This is how loyalty becomes dependence. This is how dependence becomes faith. And this is how faith becomes a cage no one dares admit they're in. How to dismantle opposition without ever confronting it. The greatest leaders, the ones who truly last, don't waste time fighting enemies head-on. They erase them without ever raising a hand. Machiavelli didn't believe in loud suppression. He believed in silent suffocation. You don't destroy opposition with violence. You destroy them with absence. With subtle exile. With the kind of silence that makes everyone forget they ever mattered. Here's how it works. When someone opposes you, whether directly or quietly, don't react emotionally. Don't defend. Don't accuse. Don't play their game. You make their presence feel smaller. You remove them from visibility. You cut their access to your influence. You starve their name of oxygen. Because in power, being unseen is worse than being hated. People don't fear death, they fear irrelevance. You want to win? Never let opposition become a symbol. Never let rebellion become a movement. You don't silence critics with threats. You silence them by making loyalty look louder. While they mumble in shadows, you elevate the loyal. Publicly. Relentlessly. Show the benefits of staying close to you. Show the status of those who submit. And let everyone see. To oppose you is to become invisible. To support you is to rise. Now the opposition won't even speak. Because they know the audience is gone. Create competition within your inner circle. Here's a darker truth. Loyalty becomes stronger when it has to compete. If everyone is equal, no one fights to stay. If status is guaranteed, effort disappears. So what do? You build controlled instability. You create a circle where the loyal are not only rewarded, but measured. You make proximity to you feel like a moving target. This is how empires stay alive. This is how cults keep their leaders divine. By creating a sense that favor can be won and lost. Hold reviews. Rank people subtly. Let your most loyal whisper to others about how they earned your trust. Create rituals of contribution, things they must do, say, offer, to remain close. Now the circle begins to police itself. Jealousy becomes loyalty's engine. The loyal begin to outperform each other, not to be better than each other, but to stay in your light. You're not even doing the work anymore. You're just watching the scramble. And the best part? None of them realize they're in a contest. Because you never said it was a game. You just let the rules reveal themselves. Power behind the curtain, building a second layer of control. Now for the final layer. The layer that makes your power truly untouchable. It's not what you say in public. It's what you control in silence. Machiavelli would never leave all power in one visible structure. He would build a second layer. A shadow layer. The system of loyal watchers, informants, testers. People whose job is not to serve you publicly, but to protect your design from within. Here's what that looks like. Quiet advisors who monitor morale. Loyalists who plant stories, test loyalty, and report doubt. Floaters who move between circles, catching whispers and steering gossip. Ghost voices who can influence opinion, then vanish without attribution. This invisible class doesn't need titles. They need access. And one directive, preserve the structure. Protect the myth. Enforce without being seen. You reward them with secrets, status, and rare privileges, never with attention. Because real power doesn't shine. It casts the shadow others live under. How to create psychological debt that lasts a lifetime. There's a kind of loyalty deeper than fear, stronger than ritual, harder to escape than identity. It's called psychological debt. And Machiavelli understood it like a surgeon. Psychological debt is when someone owes you so much, not in money, not in favors, but in who they've become, that they can never repay you. And they know it. It starts with a single moment. You take a risk on them when no one else would. You lift them out of obscurity. You defend them in public. You change their life. And now, they don't just admire you. They feel indebted. That's the moment of binding. They rise and know you were the reason. Their new identity, their new status, their new confidence, all traceable back to you. And they'll never forget it. Because it lives in their story. You are the reason they matter. And to betray you would be to rewrite their origin into a lie. This is a trick empires, cults, and corporations all use. The leader creates someone's future, then makes them feel it was a gift. And gifts? They create guilt, gratitude, a debt of the soul. Now, the follower can't rebel. Because rebelling feels like burning the bridge they walked in on. And the more that bridge is public, the more others saw it happen. The deeper the debt goes. That's why public sponsorship is so effective. That's why initiation ceremonies matter. That's why every badge, every speech, every symbolic promotion means more than money. Because once someone is elevated in front of others, they're no longer protecting just themselves. They're protecting the version of themselves that exists because of you. And that version doesn't want to disappear. How to ritualize your replacement without losing control. Eventually, you'll face a different kind of problem. Not followers, but successors. If your legacy depends only on you, then your power ends when you do. But if your values, your system, are turned into rituals, then anyone can sit on the throne. And the kingdom still functions. This is how Machiavelli thought long-term. He didn't just want his ideas to live. He wanted them to shape the world, long after his voice was gone. So how do you do it? You turn your beliefs into structures, rules, standards, ceremonies. You teach others how to lead inside your model. And most importantly, you create a system where no one is bigger than the structure. That means, new leaders must rise through your rituals, not outside them. Loyalty is tested through tradition, not personality. Every position has a cost to earn and criteria to keep. No one inherits power freely. They must suffer for it just as you designed. This keeps the throne sacred. It keeps the culture clean. And it ensures that anyone who rules after you doesn't undo the machine. They serve it, trapping future leaders in the system you designed. Here's the Machiavellian twist. You don't just train successors. You trap them. You design a system so effective, so admired, so untouchable, that even your replacements won't dare break it. Because the moment they do, they risk the wrath of the very loyalists they now lead. When your followers love the structure more than the person in charge, the system becomes immortal, and the next leader becomes its servant, not its master. You've now flipped the script. They don't overthrow your ideas. They uphold them, not out of respect, but out of self-preservation. Because to tamper with the system would mean losing everything. Support, legacy, legitimacy. The fear of collapse keeps your successors more loyal than even your inner circle. And now, you don't need to rule anymore. The world you created rules itself.